Hello, and welcome to the inaugural Ask the Podcast episode of Zapped to the Past, which is questions posed to us by our patrons through our Discord channel. So this is the first time we've done this, so don't know, expect anything. It could go horribly wrong.
We don't know what we're doing.
No, we don't. We really don't. So we've got a lot of questions that have been asked over it's 3 months now it's been running on it. So we thought we'd better get around to doing this.
Yes.
But we did say when it was a decent amount to actually answer. So we've got a few and we're going to go through them. Hopefully, I don't know, you might like the answers, you might not, you might stop listening to us, go, God damn it, I disagree with that massively.
We encourage you not to do exactly what he's just said.
No, I said you might do, but hopefully we're not. It's just us, being us, answering your questions. So that's this
well, there's a simple rule
episode
to this, isn't there? If you don't want scary answers, don't ask scary questions.
That is true. That is very, very true. So should we get on with it? Should we get on with these?
I think we should.
Mr. David Hearn asked us, first of all, he says, did we ever review Jack Attack?
Jack Attack?
Yeah, we did not.
Oh,
It's the simple answer to that.
Okay, no then.
It's in, if I remember rightly, let me just do a quick check. I think it's in...
It's an early Zap, isn't it?
It is. It's reviewed in episode 1,
right.
Issue 1 of Zap.
Okay.
And back then, we weren't sure if we were going to do every single game because there was loads.
Yeah.
And so we pulled out, a selection from the first few issues.
Yeah, we didn't do it that way, did we? We just took a chunk.
Yeah, we took a chunk. It was never going to be, we'll sort of look at everything. It was only, I think, as the games withered for a period, weren't there, when there was only about 12 in an episode issue that we sort of started doing everything, and we just continued
those days. I remember those days.
It was 12, 6 games to look at for a podcast, rather than 15 each week or whatever. So we never. There was always the thought to. Well, it was in that session. So what we do have planned at some point, somewhere down the line, there are about 30 games that we didn't look at from those first few issues. At some point, when we get time, after the heat death of the universe, we will probably go back and revisit those missed, I don't want to say diamonds in the rough because I have no idea what they're like.
I think that's a good plan, actually, but we should aim to do it at some point.
We should.
Because for completeness, otherwise, what we're saying really...
I know. We're saying we're looking at all C64 games, and we're just making a fool of ourselves.
Well, absolutely. And do you know what? I have a funny feeling because as we've gone through Zapped the Past and as we've played more games, generally speaking, the quality's got worse. And then when we've had the games from 1984 come back, the Activision ones I'm thinking of most recently, they tend to be pretty good. So it'd be quite nice to go back to some of these initial ones that we didn't do and just to see, because I think what did we actually cover in episode?
Don't forget there was that weird stuff like those Spider's Web ones and
there's Dickie's Diamonds and that. But this Spy Hunter was back then. Summer Games was back then somewhere, and there's a few.
Summer Games was episode 0. That's pre-Zap.
That's what I mean. That time zone is what I'm thinking back then.
Yeah. Well, we also did it in a different way because we front loaded that because we never knew we were going to talk for so long. That was the thing, wasn't it?
Yes.
And we front loaded it with good games. And so the episode 1, part 2 is just full of dross, like Web Dimension and Shades, if you remember those.
Oh God, Shades,
Dark Tower and things like that. Yeah. So it wasn't a very well balanced start to the podcast, but it was what it was. We were finding our feet.
There was a lot more crap verts back then as well.
There were an inordinate amount of crap verts. Yes. So there you go.
They've got better at marketing crap, but they're still marketing crap.
Yeah. Well, they were crappily marketing good. Now they're well marketing crap.
So to David Hearn's point, though, just because I can't remember anything about Jack Attack, what actually was it other than the weird Jack Tramiel reference?
I don't know. I've never played it.
Right. Have you read the Bagnall, James Bagnall book? Is it James Bagnall? The Commodore 64 book that's like the beginnings of the Commodore 64. That isn't the title, and it's probably not the author, which is the terrible reference. But I'll put the actual
Have you read a book?
Have you read a book about... I'm sure it's by somebody Bagnall. It might be Charles. I can't remember. Anyway, I'll post it. I'll find out who that is. However... that makes reference to what a Jack attack actually was in terms of Jack Tramiel doing it, which is where he had obviously Jack Tramiel was the originator of Commodore, essentially.
Right.
And obviously there's a whole story about Jack Tramiel, but famously he used to be quite confrontational. And when he was challenging people, he would be right in their face, really challenging them. He wouldn't stand for any nonsense, quite famously. And he did it so often, it became known as a Jack attack in Commodore. So you would get Jack attacked. And he was quite not quite confrontational. That's an understatement. He was actually quite nasty and verbally abusive to his staff. According to the written documentation, anyway. And it became known as a Jack attack. And I'm guessing that's a little bit of a nod to that. I don't know if it's anything to do with they knew anything about Jack attack, so Jack Tramiel at that time. But
I honestly have no idea. I don't know. But
yes, I mean, obviously a very intense businessman with an incredible history. Actually, Jack Tramiel, really incredible considering he survived the sort of the Second World War sort of camps and all of that. All of the survived all of that sort of stuff. So to come out of that and create Commodore, and then here we are, doing a podcast about the very computer that he was one of his little computer babies, which sounds really awful when I say it out loud, but in my head it didn't have this image of Jack Tramiel giving birth to a computer, but now I do. Anyway, I'm just going to go wash my eyes.
So do our listeners. So do our listeners as well.
I'm going to go wash my eyes and ears.
So you should.
Anyway, that's the Jack attack. That's what it was.
Okay. All right. There we go. That's that first one. Mr. Hearn also asked us, what are our favourite games outside the C64?
It's a big question, that.
It's a very big question. I'll keep it short.
Yeah, you go first. You go first, because I need time to think.
Well, I always had a sort of a holy triumvirate of games that came out around 2000, 2004, and that was Halo, Metroid Prime, and Resident Evil 4. So there's many, many reasons why I love those three games. But they were sort of really seminal games for me when 3D became a viable option. There was the PS1
viable D
and stuff, viable D. But there's things like Ocarina of Time and things like that. But there's something about the timing of those three games when I was I just had time to play them and immerse myself in them, and they're just brilliant games. Since then, a fourth one has emerged that has been added into that to make it a square rather than a triangle, and that game is Bloodborne, which is incredible. Which there's something about playing a game about a horrible society breaking down to a horrible blood disease during a pandemic. That sort of speaks to something. But during the pandemic itself, I put about, overall the saves, I think I put about 400 hours into Bloodborne.
Wow.
I played it through multiple times, multiple different things. Nothing grabbed me, and nothing has grabbed me, and I still go back to it. It's just an amazing game. So yeah, Halo, Metroid Prime, Resident Evil 4, and Bloodborne. There you go. That's my top four.
Nothing 16-bit or anything like that, or in between.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I never had SNES, never had a Mega Drive, and the only games I really played on the Amiga back then, nothing really grabbed me in a sense of like these games did. So no, it would be. I mean, I could probably Metal Gear Solid would sit in there, the first one, and Metal Gear Solid 3 as well. So some of those would be in there as well. There's some Dreamcast games that I really love as well. But I think if you're going to just, like I said, I could talk for ages, as you well know. So I'm not going to. I'm just going to go, there you go, that's mine. What about yours?
I've been out of the room 7 times and an hour's gone by. No, I'm joking. Now this is difficult, isn't it? Because it's easy. I had a big gap. I had a huge gap in game playing. So I had 2 gaps, actually. The first gap was because I became quite a big trader of demos and games. And when you do that and you have a lot of contacts across the world, which I did, both on the C64 and the Amiga, less so after that. In fact, not after that. But up to that point, I was getting a lot of games and getting a lot of demos and stuff, and you just kind of become very blasé to them. So outside of the C64, my absolute favourite Amiga games are the Monkey Island games. I think they're just brilliant. They're just on the Amiga, it's a brilliant game, all of them, including the Chuck's Revenge. And I don't know if the third one ever came out on the Amiga. If it did, it did. I only really go by the ones I had, or the originals of, and it's very rare I bought games on the Amiga, but I did buy those. And also, I actually really liked the Alien Breed series of games on the Amiga. Not the later ones, the initial one. And it's actually because, if you think about it, I didn't even realize, and we didn't say it at the time, but when we was playing Into the Eagle's Nest on the C64, it's a lot like Alien Breed.
Yeah,
in terms of the way it looks.
Yes.
And that sort of thing does appeal to me. And of course, so it's a good mixture of Aliens crossed with Gauntlet. That's Amiga. Then I didn't own a Mega Drive or a SNES. I vicariously enjoyed those through friends that had them. And I have to say that there weren't that many games that really made me go, wow. They all kind of looked the same. That said, when the Mega CD arrived, and my friend got a Mega CD, that was slightly different because both Solfeis, which is, I think that's how you say it, but I think it was a remake of Soldice, which I think is how you say it, which is a Mega Drive game. I don't know if they're arcade games or whatever their heritage was. So that's a side-scrolling shoot 'em up. But the music on the Solfeis Mega CD was the actual music. It must be an arcade conversion, I think. And it had this amazing music. I love the music to this day. In fact, I even bought a second-hand Mega CD version, which I've still got somewhere on the shelf. Not because I own a Mega CD, which I don't, but because the actual music on it, you could play in an ordinary CD player. So I really like those. And of course, the Streets of Rage / Final Fight games on the Mega Drive were brilliant. Really, and I still love those kind of games. In fact, I've recently bought the side-scrolling book. It was not a side-scrolling book. It's a book about side-scrolling games and fighting game stuff. And I absolutely loved those kind of games. And Streets of Rage and Final Fight are kind of one game, really. There's the same thing with slight variations of character. I think one has a baddie called Blade, and the other one has one called Knife or Bread or something stupid. Really bizarre names, but that's the part of the appeal. And that led me on to sort of lots of side-scrolling stuff. The SNES and the SNES and the Mega Drive, and there's a whole crux of stuff that I kind of avoided and just didn't really get into. I never really liked Sonic that much. Didn't really like any of those platformers that much. Never got into them. Had mates that were. Just every now and again I'd dip in, and we had weird mates that had real weird batches of consoles and things. So we actually got to play a really wide variety of games on different platforms that perhaps not everyone would have had access to, like this Philips CDI. And my friend had this weird disk drive thing that you could plug into your Nintendo, your SNES, and that meant that you could sort of load games in off disk. I don't even know what that's even called. But anyway, I had one of those. So, but favourite games, well, there's a huge gap. And then I sort of dipped back into PC gaming when I had a brief flirtation with some of the first-person shooters around the Duke Nukem era and around that time. And Command & Conquer is a firm favourite of mine at that time. I think it's around that time. And again, that's another PC game that I bought the original of. Then there's another big gap. And then I go back into the sort of more modern ones. And for me, really, and you could shoot me down if you want for these, because I didn't play any of the games that you've mentioned. I played Bloodborne briefly and it wasn't my cup of tea, but you reintroduced me to console gaming. I'd completely switched off from it. And so God of War series, I'm putting them as in a series, apart from the more recent one, the God of War 2. God of War 2 is just a phenomenal game. It's just incredibly. And as a game that introduces you back into console gaming, when you've not seen games for a while and you come back, that's such an amazing experience. I still remember playing it in your house. You showing me it to this day. I remember going, that is just something else.
Yeah.
And games like that. So that kind of, what do they call them? Hack and slash third person? What are they called?
Yeah,
the official name?
I think the terminology is character action games.
So character action games then. And so though that kind of game appeals to me, so the Ninja Gaidens of this world, all of those, and then the Devil May Cry series and all of those, and that genre of game I really like. So what's in the favourites? Oddly, nothing from that genre. God of War sort of does dip its toe in, but for me, I go by the experiences I had.
No Bayonetta?
Again, Bayonetta it has a place, but I go by the emotional investment I had into those games and the journey they took me on. Last of Us, the first one, absolutely took me on a journey. That was an emotional journey, that game. And it's just genuinely absolutely mind-blowing and a step above. Half-Life 2, because I had played nothing like it, and then I played Half-Life 2. I didn't ever play Half-Life. I played Half-Life 2 first, and it's just completely, if you imagine never playing a game like that and then playing that and not even experiencing anything like it and then that, it blew my mind and still does. And then BioShock Infinite, because I think it's the BioShock series, but Infinite is my favorite out of the three. principally because I think it's the most beautifully engineered and designed game design I have ever seen, and I think I probably ever will see. I think it's stunning, absolutely stunning. The way you can fly about and jump about, and the way the game logic works, and the twisty turning, everything about it is just somebody sat down, and when they made that game idea, sometimes these things you think they're never going to be able to pull that off, and yet they did with that. Everything in that is amazing. It's just mind blowing. And that's why I go for those sort of titles. I have to say, in the also rans, of course, Halo has to be in there, but it's really difficult to pick out. It says your favorite games, not your favorite game. So Halo's in there in my list but I played it on PC first, weirdly, before I played it on console.
Yeah.
I know, weird. I know, but just it's how you come across these things. And I just remember, you going on and on and on about it and thinking, God, it can't be that good.
I was a right Halo bore.
But it wasn't a bore. You were just absolutely, completely spellbound by it. And I remember coming across it later after the 6-hour conversation we had in the pub about it, and you're completely going mad, and rightly so. And I remember playing it thinking, this isn't all that, and then getting to the section where you can counter the flood and going, this is something else. This game is astonishing. And then realizing, as the Halo sequels came out, how much goes on in Halo in the background and around the edges, and how different you can take the approaches to that in all the different ways you can. Mm-hmm. And then you realize that game is genuinely incredibly, incredibly brilliant. So it's in there. So those are some of my games. I know it's not a full list. I couldn't, honestly. I played so many games over the time.
Yes.
And these game moments stick in your mind. I mean, loads of games recently. You've played a lot more games more recently than I do. I've taken a bit of a break now completely from all game, apart from what we do for the podcast. I just don't have the time and the dedication. I played Ghost of Tsushima. I got really into it to the point where I was wearing a kimono around the house, and it just
apart from Blue Pant Day.
Yeah, it just upset everybody. And I started getting really demanding of all the neighbours and demanding money off them and everything. It was weird, and just chasing people down on horseback a lot, and then writing haikus. Oh, the haikus I've written, goodness me. Galactic eyes, sharp as Tikagi, and all that. Yeah. So yeah. Anyways, I feel like I've rambled on there, but yes, that was mine.
No. There you go. You ask us a question like that, expect an answer.
Yeah, it's a big.
But yeah, I think the 4 I've put are the most thematically consistent through them, that keep it all going. But gaming moments, there's just too many. There's I think if you're talking sort of next gen moments, one of the big ones for me was in Ghost Recon Advanced Warfare 2. I don't know if you ever played that.
No. Say most of these real big modern ones I've not done.
Yeah, well, it was on the 360, so this was the first time you'd had some games that were sort of high def, and I just got a new high def TV. Well, high def, it was 720 or 1080, whatever it was at the time. And Ghost Recon Advanced Warfare 2 is the sequel, obviously, to Ghost Recon Advanced Warfare. There's a bit in it where you fight through the first sequence, and then you get in this helicopter. And I think it's all seamlessly done. And you get in this mission briefing as you're going around the side of this mountain, and about what you're going to do. And you go into the town or the city of Juarez in Mexico. Mm-hmm. And as you come around this side of this mountain, the general or the sergeant or whatever is banging on it. You're going, oh, there's this and this, and the intel says all this, and typical militaristic jingo. But then just as you come around the mountain, it's so perfectly timed, because you just, gentlemen, welcome to Juarez, and you just round the corner of this mountain, and there's just this city in flames laid out below you. And as a next gen moment, it's one of those few moments you just go, there's the extra power. and it's just like, oh my! I've never seen anything quite like it. It's an incredible sequence. I'll also echo as well Half-Life 2. Half-Life 2 was it was a one that took a while for me, because I got Half-Life 2 on launch on PC. But unfortunately, it was completely and utterly ruined by the stuttering bug that plagued Half-Life 2 when it first came out. So I couldn't play it really, and it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. So it was quite a while before I kind of came round to playing that through as well. Same with the Portal games as well. But there you go. Okay, so what's our next question? So that's that one, games. So David Hearn asked again, what music are you currently enjoying apart from Jennifer Rush?
Dude, I've never enjoyed Jennifer Rush.
No, I haven't. Not on an ironic level, not on a funny level, not anything. Never enjoyed Jennifer Rush. This is going to be your question, because I don't think I've listened to any new music post 2008.
Right? Why?
I just don't listen to time. I've only got so much time, and I listened. I found myself listening to podcasts more than I do music, just to keep up with things. To once you get into certain things, so that's what happens. So I just don't really listen to a lot of music these days. If I do, I just stick something from YouTube on a sort of playlist of something or other, or I just listen to Rush because that's about it. I know where I am with them, and when I'm working or something like that, I just need something on that I know, and I'm not gonna bug me. So yeah, I don't really listen to much music these days, apart from old 80s cheese. So what about you?
I tend to find more interesting, newer music. I don't ever listen to the charts or anything like that. I don't understand it, and I don't want to. There's a current genre of music. I don't even know what you call it, but it just sounds like someone going, I woke up the other morning and I couldn't find my peas in my shed, so I went and then sort of background sounds like ding, tick, 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 ding, ding, and it's just some kind of rap variant. I think I don't want to. I tend to listen to stuff on Bandcamp and on SoundCloud. So I'm quite a big advocate of both of those platforms for different reasons. I've been listening to a band that I really like called Siome on both those platforms. They're on there. You can download their albums and listen to them for free if you want. I like something called sort of a synth outfit, for want of a better description. They're called VHS Glitch, which are really good. They're like a dark synthwave stuff. Something called Nyctophiliac, which is kind of a trip, almost a dark industrial trip hop, which is really cool. They've got an album called Dark Side of the Mental, which is really, really good. I also like some really majorly heavy metal-y stuff. So Threat Signal and bands like that, I quite like stuff like that. It depends what I'm doing. If I'm training in the gym and stuff like that, I tend to like to listen to really aggressive industrial metal. So the Ministries, although I don't really like the new album as such, but it's better than some of the other stuff. But Ministry, your classic old school 80s Frontline Assembly, Skinny Puppy, KMFDM, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But I also like some of the newer stuff as well. And SoundCloud's I quite like Deep House. So there's some Deep House stuff in there as well, and a bit of a mishmash. What I can tell you is I couldn't name you the top 60 tracks in the UK for downloads. I wouldn't know who they were. And it has, as Darth Vader says, they no longer have no meaning for me. Well, he didn't say it like that. He didn't say they no longer have that? No. Yes, that name no longer has meaning for me. That's
that name. All right.
He didn't say that music doesn't have no, but in my head he does.
I know not what this
there's some good stuff out there. Just if you go genre hunting on things like SoundCloud, there's some really good little. People do some really interesting stuff. There's a really good one called Wolf and Badger then, but it's not Wolf and Badger. Called Wolf and Raven on SoundCloud. Now, Wolf and Raven do really good old arcade sounding, like the old music you used to get on Sega arcades, like stuff like that. Well, they do that kind of music, but they do it kind of ramped up and modern. They've just released a whole album, a cover of all of the Outrun soundtracks. And stuff like that. I quite like really innovative, and most of these are just like people and sat on their own in their bedroom, probably, or a couple of people. There's a lot of that going on. Good stuff. Yeah.
Wolf and Badger sounds like the follow-up to Foster and Allen.
I think Wolf and Badger make slippers. I think it's definitely Wolf and Raven. Wolf
and Badger, just with their endless compilation albums.
There's Daniel Deluxe as well. I'll give Daniel Deluxe a go. Good old-fashioned, deep, dark synth and synthwave and stuff like that. But synthwave got so ubiquitous and so everyone was doing it. It's a bit like, okay. So there you go. That's me.
There you go. All right. Did either of us get into mods music on the Amiga?
Yeah,
we did a bit, didn't we?
Yeah, I did loads.
I did some around at your house and the bits and bobs on my own, but you were much more into it than I was.
I've got loads. I've got an entire channel on SoundCloud, which I'll post in the Patreon link. I think I already have, actually, so I won't post it again. But there's not all of my Amiga stuff on there. I don't actually own my Amiga 1200 anymore. It died in a bizarre accident. However, prior to its death, my good friend Paddy rescued it had a hard drive in my 1200, an 80 meg hard drive, all 80 meg of it, and he managed to somehow take my entire hard drive off and make an archive of it, which I still have to this day. And now you can plug that archive into an Amiga emulator like WinUAE, and that means I can actually play my 1200 exactly as it was, and that 1200's got all my Optimed and all my sound tracker and mods and everything on it, so I can still listen to them. And I've recorded some of them and put them on SoundCloud just for posterity.
So. Do you still have that one that I did the vocals on?
Yes. Yes, it's time for us to pay for the sanctity of life. That one, yeah, I've still got that.
You wrote the lyrics, I just did the vocals.
But when you say repent all sinners, it drops down, I think, a full octave. So it goes, repent all sinners, like deeper. It's really funny.
yeah, I want a singer.
Well, because the original plan, and when I was doing some of that, I was heavily into industrial, obviously, and Prodigy and stuff like that. I still love the Prodigy to this day. And so that was a massive influence on the music I was creating at the time. And some of those tracks I was doing I've created an outfit, a band name called Wealth in Chains, if you remember.
I do.
And Wealth in Chains, I did an album. I did a load of tracks under that proviso, and they were using really advanced techniques at the time on an Amiga. So it wasn't just an Amiga. I was mixing in sound samples from films. I was blending these things with the most bizarre array of wires connected to an Akai video recorder you've ever seen, using it as a mixing desk. It's bizarre even when I think about it now, and yet it kind of worked. And not many of those tracks have survived because some of them had vocals on. And I used to have them all on a tape, and that tape, obviously, as these things do, disappeared in time. So I don't have any of the tracks now that have the vocals on, except for a short excerpt of a track that's on YouTube, which a friend of mine happened to send to me on CD, which was a music video we had to do as part of a college project. With the music video was shocking, but the sound, there's the sound on it, which is a track called I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but there's the track I did. It's like a weird industrial rap type thing. And it's got some vocals on that, but it sounds like I'm trapped in a tin of beans.
Was it?
Conformity, that's it. But it sounds like I'm trapped in a tin of beans when I'm singing that.
It does. Conformity coming from your thing to territory.
coming from your screen, it's a mystery. Yeah,
that's the bit I remember.
Shouting at your name, saying "Buy me." Hey, now I'm proud of those lyrics.
Indeed. Don't forget as well. We are. I mean, let's say 1992, we're probably the only band in the north of England that was using an Amiga 500 or whatever it was, and a 14-inch portable telly to do drums while we played guitars and bass and sang live on stage. We
were massively ahead of our time in that
with
respect.
samples and stuff as well.
Massively ahead. Yeah, we were. And if you look at, I was reading about, what band was I reading about that also did that? It's part of one of the researchy bits we were doing for the podcast. I was like, oh my God, we weren't the only ones doing that. There was another band that didn't have a drummer. They became quite famous for it. It'll come back to me. It might have been. It was somebody. I remember reading it going, wow, I did not expect that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Sisters of Mercy always were a Dr. Avalanche, weren't they? But we were just an Amiga and a 14-inch portable.
Yes, we were. We were indeed. Well, with the samples from a Gamma Ray album, we got complimented so many times on how good our samples were, and I'm like, if only you knew who did them.
Yes, we've been ostracised from the Grimsby music scene.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, there you go. All right. Mankco asked us, did anyone read this classic horror comic back in the day? It was the Scream comic.
I never. I did like some horror comics, but that wasn't one of the ones on my list.
No, when I saw this, I was like, where did I miss this? This would have been, I mean, both you and I sort of would have been all over this if I'd have seen it, but no, I don't think it made its way to Grimsby.
No, well, a lot of that stuff didn't. We didn't have a comic shop.
We didn't.
And we did sort of get a sort of one. There was a couple of attempts at it, but we never got a really serious comic shop. And also, there tended to be in some comic shops a little bit of comic snobbery. We used to go to a comic book fair that used to come to Cleethorpes every whatever period of time that was. And that's where I used to buy my Hellraiser comics and Aliens vs Predator comics and all the Dark Horse stuff I used to be into. Don't know what happened to all of them. I think I lost a lot of my belongings in a flood that happened at my mum's house where she was storing them all, and so a lot of these things have been lost in time, like tears in the rain.
I feel like you should put a violin on there.
Time to a drink of coffee. There we go.
Time to no tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering. So no, we never saw that. Sven asked us if there's any good C64 related books to recommend that is possible to get a hard copy of still.
That's difficult.
History, programming, anything really. I don't know of any that are still print new.
No, it's Brian Bagnall, by the way. Brian Bagnall's book about the Commodore 64, and that's
Bobby's brother.
Bobby, yeah, it's Bobby
Bagnall.
Yeah, you can't unfortunately get that alone. I don't think you can get it anymore in hard copy. He wrote a follow up to that as well, which is like, and there was a weird bit of song and dance around the Kickstarter for the second book because it was meant to be one book, and then it got mysteriously split into two books, and there was a bit of brouhaha around that. The first book was actually the one. That's the one I've read. I've got the other ones, but I've never read those, and I really enjoyed the Brian Bagnall book. It is a very detailed description of what happened at Commodore from its early calculator beginnings all the way through to the Commodore 64, and what is interesting about that is it details all of the what do you call it? All of the main players who design the sound chips and the video chips and all of that. So it's quite good.
Yes. In fact, I have your copy right here.
Oh, you've got my copy. That's where it is.
I have your copy of it here. Was there a sleeve with it? I don't think there was.
There was, but I think I probably got it here. I don't tend to lend the books out with sleeves on because they.
Yeah. So yeah, I still have that. Yeah, I still have it here.
Yeah, we'll get it read.
It's a good book. It is a very good book. Yeah, I've read it, most of it.
But it's hard. It's like very hard to get hold of now. Programming wise, goodness me, there's tons of books on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's probably a lot. I mean, you just go get the programmer's reference guide.
Yes, well, that's
the classic.
I think that should be issued. I've actually still got my original book of that, and it's still got the original schematic of the Commodore 64 and the chips in it. Because for reasons I'm not exactly sure, you get a giant schematic with it.
My favourite story out of that Bagnall book is how they designed the chips.
When the big laid out on them giant
just a massive laid out, and just used to lay paper on top of paper, transparent paper on top of transparent paper.
Yeah.
And the I can't remember her name, but she had to remind them to cut their toenails.
Yeah.
Because they were scampering all over these massive things, and with bare feet and everything, and slicing it to bits with their elongated toenails.
It's crazy to think that's how they did
it. Yeah, this weird sort of image.
Pre-CAD. It reminds me, the way he describes that, it reminded me of it was like in Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, like they go in this room, there's these giant microchips that they're working in, and they go, right, we've got to shrink that down so it goes inside a Commodore 64. It's essentially what they were doing.
Yeah, can you imagine turning around to Jack Tremor, shrink it? That's how big it is.
I said, get in the Commodore 64. It's the Spruce Moose.
Indeed. So there you go. David Hearn asked us, how about an episode re-rating all the Zap gold medals and sizzlers? Starting with 85 with a score today. Pointing out any that you would make a sizzler or gold medal that Zap didn't do. Could do, I suppose.
Yeah,
I've never thought about it. It says we wouldn't need to revisit them. Good. Because I'm not playing Mercenary and Elite again.
No more Vector things.
No, we don't. Well, we could do. I mean, we kind of do it in the episodes, though, don't we? When we sort of talk about these, what we kind of give it and where we put it. So, and I don't know. I don't know whether we sort of be doubling over ourselves, but it's something to think about. I'm not sure. Possibly.
Yeah, we could possibly revisit them. I don't want to have to replay them, but it's the idea to go back and look at the Zap gold medals and sizzlers, and then rescore them and give them the same.
Just see what we would score them. But I just think we'll probably do that in the episode themselves. They call it Zap back, but I think they kind of do that in the issues themselves. And I don't know whether we'd just be repeating what was said already. I've got nothing else to say about Mercenary.
No, I don't want to go back to Dizzo.
No, or Lave. It's just done. No.
Lave or Dizzo. Or Lave.
It's pretty clear that we thought that, where the exploding fish should have been a gold medal. So.
Yes. In fact, that still to this day annoys me.
It does me too.
There you
go. Dr. Goggles asked us, Roger Moore is trending on Twitter. This was back in January. What's his dustiness a reference to?
So I don't know which episode it first began, but it's when we first encountered A View to a Kill.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's the game came for us before the film or the film came before the game. Either way, the dustiness is a reference to the fact that when Roger Moore was playing James Bond in A View to a Kill, he was quite old for a James Bond.
Some of whom were very old.
Some of the James Bonds were very old. Now, he was a pensioner, essentially. And we said that when he was getting fruity with the Bond girls, and I think it's such a naff term to call them, but the female co-stars of the Bond movies. And at this time in the 80s, you don't see it so much now, but in that time, they were basically there to have their dresses unzipped in some manner, and for Roger Moore to crack some cheesy one-liner and then do the deed, as it were, the Bond deed. And we said that these co-stars, these female co-stars, would it would feel to them like he was just some crunched up powdery guy because he's so old. He just He just had powder on him. He was more dusty because he was just very dusty and old. And kissing him would just leave a dusty sort of particles on your mouth, and that led to that went down a garden path where I think he ended up having a Hoover bag testicles, and the sort of
the Henry Hoover.
Yes, broken. He had the sex drive of a broken Henry Hoover, and when he ejaculated, it came out as dust. It was like, and the co-star was like, "Oh God, it's all in my mouth and everything. I can't get off." And that was mainly it. So we figured that when you opened because he wears the same jacket principally throughout that whole movie, when you unzipped his jacket, it was just formulated from powder, because he was just a powdery old guy. So I think that's where the reference comes from for us. I think
it is. Yeah, as I said in the podcast, I think it is that inside that jacket is just the memories of Bond's past.
It's just, you have to watch that because it's and funnily enough, it was on not long ago, actually. I remember texting you at the time saying, "Oh my God, it's on TV." And I watched it and it is absolutely crap. It's the worst, one of the worst Bond movies ever. It's so badly acted. I mean, Grace Jones is doing her best with what she's got in that. But honestly, it's so bad. And the part towards the end, when for reasons unknown, they're just like machine gunning their own men in a mine that they've, it's in a mine that they're flooding. It's just bizarre, weird stuff. None of it makes any sense. And, dusty. It's all very dusty.
It's all very dusty bin.
Now, what we did know, of course, is that one of his female victims, co-stars in that, was also in Beastmaster, where for reasons that we don't fully know or understand, she gets her boobs out. So that was a highlight. Yeah. That was the only highlight in that film.
What, Beastmaster?
Yeah, because the rest of it was... Remember, he could talk... In that, he talks fluent eagle and ferret.
Yeah. I'm not going on a Beastmaster.
No, I just wanted to say, I like the idea of them at some point explaining to Mark Singer, who played Dar, the main lead, yeah, and one of your powers is you can speak to ferrets and eagles. And he'd be like, eagles? Anyway.
I mean, ferrets and eagles are like mortal enemies. Why would you learn both of them? Maybe you're trying to broker a truce.
It later in the film becomes handy, doesn't it? Because he happens to go into the one flesh-eating crazy monster village where they worship the eagles, and handily enough, he can speak fluent eagle. That saves his bacon. It does.
Yeah, it does. He can't talk pig, though.
No, don't go into the pig village.
David Hearn asked us, have you played any of the modern C64 games, originals or remakes, like Commando, Sam's Journey, Sonic? Any thoughts on those? We played the Commando, didn't we?
We did play Commando when Goblins.
We played those couple when we looked at those games in the actual when the originals were reviewed. So we looked at those. I haven't really played much of the new stuff, I have to say. It's just a time thing. The only one I've really played was Carlton Handley's Run and Gun, which I really liked. I thought that was really good. I haven't looked at the new Sonic. I've seen videos of it, and I know there's a Super Mario part as well, but So no, what about you? Have you played much of the new stuff? I
have, actually. I played the Sonic game, which was impressive, but Sonic, so that's always going to hamper it. It was impressive, though. I played the Mario one, which was great. Again, they're using, I think, I'm not sure if all of them are going to run on a classic bread bin. I think sometimes they have enhancements that work through emulation. I don't know the full details of all of that, but let's go by what you played. I like the Commando one was good. It was kind of a full version. Ghosts and Goblins, righting some wrongs, wasn't it? Yes. I also like the Run and Gun. Excellent game, really good fun. Sonic was good if you like Sonic. Mario was quite amazing if you like that. There's also Prince of Persia, a version of that, which of course was originally an Apple II game that was converted to the C64. That's actually pretty damn good as well. Albeit that you forget how fiddly the controls are in that game.
Yes.
So. Yeah, I've played a few of them, and then I saw the Limbo demo, which looked genuinely mind-blowing for the C64. There's a few things like that are out there, but it's not the full game. The modern stuff that you see in the sort of the ones that people are doing out off their own back at the moment, there's some real good stuff out there. They're using such crazy advanced code techniques that have often pioneered through the demo scene that have sort of come out of that. So that enables them to shift the screen at much faster rates and do some amazing optimized code tricks. So because they're doing that kind of stuff. But every now and again one pops up and I'll take a look at it. I think they're interesting. I think they benefit from 30 years of people coding demos and coding other games.
Yes,
and,
indeed.
Some of the routines of them, yes, they're mind blowing, but
yeah. And
great
at
stuff.
some point, we may actually do a one-off, just looking at some of these as well.
Yeah, I think that might be
we have a
worth
plan
doing.
to. So especially some of the more popular stuff, because there's obviously the new Zapped magazine is reviewing quite a few games. I think it'd be hard pressed to sort of go through them all, or whether we just wait until we get to them. I don't know, but there is a plan to look at them at some point somewhere, because why not? Why not? Mike Fletcher, he said, a Patreon bonus content suggestion. Why not run a vote on a game to do an audio review that's either pre or post Zap? He said, appreciate your episode 0 covered a number of pre-Zap games, but there are plenty of others that could be. He's put coveted. I could covet them all right, but I presume he means covered. We could do that.
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity to do that. I think that's something we should perhaps do. Yeah.
I think when we look at doing those ones we missed in the first few episodes, first few issues, we'll pull some of them older stuff together. But we can certainly do that. I mean, might be nice to do that in between seasons, I guess.
Yeah, and post-Zap games. What do they mean by post-Zap games? Is that
I presume the stuff we've just mentioned.
Yeah,
like
Commandos, the new ones. Yeah,
Sonic,
I'd like to look at some of those. And
so all that could tie together quite nicely. So we could do. Dr. Goggle said in February, he said, just seen Jazz Rignall's Twitter post on the March 87 issue bemoaning the lack of games. He posted the cover, and it's a great Ollie Frey piece, which made me think you never mentioned the cover on the podcast. Well, it would be nice to hear a bit of description of it and discussion about it, whether it's a good one or not, whether it relates to the game or a lot of the creative license, just a thought. We did do that. We used to. We did quite a lot. We kind of got out of the habit of that, but we've brought it back in the last few episodes, so we are doing that again.
Yeah, we're going back to that, I think, because I don't know quite why we stopped. I think some of the covers became a bit nondescript. There was that really weird one where they were all choir boys, wasn't there? And there's
exactly.
Because I remember looking at the one that had the really bizarre one for leaderboard, where it was the girl with a lollipop, and we
did mention that. I think we mentioned that in the review of the game itself. So I think we just kind of got out of the habit of it, but we've gone back to it. So we'll mention them as we do, and we've went, especially in the last couple. Obviously, it'll just be in the first part of however many parts we cover each month in. But we are doing that. David Hearn asked, Desert Island Discs. You can only pick 3 C64 games, let's say from 84 to 86, to avoid spoilers for the 87 awards, and they're all you have on the island. Which conveniently has power? Which 3 games do you pick? And he's gone for Shogun, Jack Attack, and Impossible Mission. What would you go for?
84 to 86 is a bit of a dead spot for me, really, because a lot of the games I like came after that. I might have gone for Impossible Mission, because...
I mean, we've covered them all in the thingy. What stuck out from...
I'm just trying to think.
I think I would go with probably Summer Games 2.
Yeah. Yeah,
because of the massive amounts of replayability in there. It's just, fun, always trying to bet your scores, good sports game. I'd go for that. What else would I go for? I don't know. Paradroid.
Yeah, maybe.
I think Paradroid would be in there. And I think probably, I don't know, International Karate.
Probably. No Eidolon for you? I thought Eidolon would have been...
I think the thing with... I'd put the Eidolon in, but I have finished it, so I know it. And I think it's a single... I think if I'm going to be stuck on an island, I want something that you can... it's not goal-based so much.
Yeah.
Paradroid is a bit, but that's the thing about Summer Games 2. I mean, if I could cheat, I'd have Summer Games 2 with the Summer Games disc as well and have them all. But that's the thing where I would lie.
Yeah, I think I'd definitely go for something like either Way That Explains Fist or International Karate, I think. Possibly Impossible Mission, because it is impossible.
But you never finish it.
No, that's what I mean. It keep you going a bit, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, maybe Paradroid, actually, thinking about it. I think games that just you could just keep going out and going out and going out and going out and go forever. Those don't tend to do that, don't they? So
yeah, there you go. A few more now. Is this from David Hearn? Do you Zusha or Zapped Past ever liquor up before playing these games? He says, I'd need at least one beer before playing Cobra or V, for example, and several for stupid games with 40 billion locations, etc.
Sometimes, yes. Sometimes, no. Sometimes I feel like having a drink after I've played some of them. Generally speaking. I tend to play them either quite late on at night when it's a bit quieter. So it's because, I don't want to sit and just, I'm off to go and play some Commodore 64 games. I've got to sit with my family and do stuff. I can't just disappear. But so I tend to play them at odd times. But if I do have an opportunity to have a drink, some of them need it. Some of them would drive you to it.
Yes.
Especially, I mean, I've started to find that I'm getting quite cross with games at the moment. I'm getting quite angry with them because there's been such a run of awful games, one after another, and it used to be, and I don't know if it's I don't know if you've noticed it. It seems to be a weird shift. I don't know if that's because my expectations are changing over time, as they would do. But it always then all of a sudden, at the moment, we're getting this resurgence of 1984 games that are coming back that have been really good, which is making me think there's some lazy ass programming going on. So that does make me think I probably need a drink to play some of them. But Cobra, all the licensed games have been awful.
I mean, you could have a bottle of Cobra to play Cobra.
Yes, you could.
If you're gonna do this, you might as well theme it. So
get some vodka
for you. Get some Asahi if you wanted to play sort of a karate style game or more, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I've actually got some of that in the fridge right now.
Yeah, some vodka for V. Yeah. So I don't. No, I don't. I go in stone cold sober. I need all my wits about me to revel in the horror that is some of these games. And I'll just echo what Graham said there, that there has been a real drought of crap. It's like it's like the river of slime in Ghostbusters 2.
Oh God!
Because there's just been a whole deluge of arse. And so sometimes after I've played a chunk of them, and sometimes, it used to be I could get through most of the games in set a few hours aside and get through them. It's getting tougher and tougher because after a few of them, you're like, oh, I can't face these anymore.
No, I agree.
And so it's getting quite bad. So are they driving me to drink? That's another question.
I mean, like I said, I've enjoyed a lot of the games we've played, and it's good fun going back to them. I like you. I don't generally drink when I'm playing these games because my hand-eye and coordination and reflexes aren't great as it is. Let alone, the dexterity required and also the fiddly eye coordination. My eyesight isn't great. No, I'm nearly 50. My eyesight is not the same as it was. Neither is my, reaction times. I get all that. And I find some things actually now bizarrely way more challenging than ever. So when I'm seeing a game that's very stroboscopic, like some of the Jeff Minter games we've played, I don't doubt that there's, we've said in the podcast the games are great in some ways. I actually find them visually difficult I can't sustain watching them for a long time. I find they give me headaches, and I think that's just my eyes aren't just got compatible with, and they are over the top. So the color rolling color bars and stuff. I've spent a large percentage of my teenage making those bloody raster bars and color bars.
That's true.
So there's nothing new there, but now as a 50-year-old, when it comes on and it's them, combination of already challenging screeching beeps and sound effects combined with that weird, blinding raster bar colors, I find it particularly difficult on games that represent scrolling forwards that way. So some of these 3D planar ones where you have like a scrolling, rolling raster bar effect for ground, I find those ones quite challenging. I have to say, not always because the games are particularly crap. Generally they have been, but because I find them quite and I know we've got a few coming up in particular that we're going to really hurt my brain. Eliminator is going to be coming up soon, and I know that's going to hurt my head. So
there you go. Another one from David. If you could pick a C64 game to be remade today with upgraded graphics, sound levels, variations, etc., what would you choose? What would you want added to the original experience to bring it into today?
Ooh, isn't that a good question?
I mean, an obvious answer would be Paradroid.
Yes.
And I've always thought you could do and I'm surprised, but I know there have been quite a few modern versions of that. So I'm trying to think of something else.
I mean, some of them have been kind of remade, haven't they? Your Barbarians and your karate games, they've all been kind of remade, so they can't really do them.
I mean, karate is just into Street Fighter 2 and all that kind of stuff, isn't it? So it's one beat 'em ups.
That's what I mean. And you shoot 'em ups, your deltas, your sanctions, all of those. They've kind of already been done as well. So there's some genres that have just it's not a genre question, is it? It would have to be a very niche C64 game. And they're actually few and far between. I'd like to see a really modern remake of Whizball, I think. I'd like that. Just because I'd like to hear the music played out, Eddie Van Halen style. I think it would. There's nothing a newer modern version of that would add. Paradroid, I could see, because you could have 3D graphics. You could make it, different. There's a whole different ways you could create that logic. And they tried it, didn't they, with some of them? There's been some attempts. Yeah,
because the thing with Paradroid is that the thing that always strikes me with Paradroid is the story behind Paradroid is that the droids have risen up and they're taking over the dreadnoughts and they're heading towards Earth, blah, blah, blah. So my thought was that the background behind that is always what happened to the people?
Yeah.
So there's going to be dead bodies everywhere, or unless they've spaced them all and just shoved them out in space. But you're going to have, darkened corridors, blood everywhere. I suppose you've got cleaner droids, haven't you? But that's kind of atmosphere. But, and sort of the things you could do with that, with like the power, the disruptor effects and things like that, everything exploding around you, terminals blowing up and things like that as the disruptor droid just walks around the corner, stuff like that, facing off against the 999 and stuff, and a bit more structure to it. But then again, I don't know. I think Paradroid is the obvious answer.
Well, this Paradroid, and I partly want to see what a modern version of Zap McCracken and the Alien Mindbenders would be like. I know they've kind of done, but maybe not done that way. I don't know how you would do it in any other way, but there's such a good story behind that, although it's a story that they kind of repeat, don't they? But
have you played Thimbleweed Park?
No, doesn't ring a bell.
Okay. It's a sort of modern pixel art sort of it's kind of like that. It's a bit sort of based on sort of X-Files as well, but it's kind of comedy basis. I think it might have had something to Ron Gilbert had something to do with it as well.
Possibly. I generally don't have time for a lot of games. Apart from what we do for the podcast, I played some ones on the old iPhone, one of which was called Inside, which was quite interesting. So now and again I'll pick up something off Apple or the Apple Arcade. But I don't generally go for anything that's going to take me too long to get into, especially after the Ghost of Tsushima experience. We're still eating the sushi, and all that. I've got a garage full of fish. I don't know what I'm going to do with that.
And that's your kimono hanging behind you, isn't it?
It is. That is my kimono there. Yes.
You're doing this podcast in Thailand. It's just his sumo pants.
Well, that's the bit you can see.
I know. I don't know why you sat like that. Why you have the camera pointed there? It's quite worrying.
I'm just composing a haiku.
I suppose another one. I mean, I was thinking whether you'd do something like the Eidolon, but again, it's just been those kind of first-person games in dark.
What is it with you in that
places?
Bloody game!
Oh, leave me alone. Leave me alone.
Giant, bloody, kiddie-friendly Duplo Dragon game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. What more do you want?
Not that.
I don't know. Maybe it's time to bring Hunchback back.
Hunchback back.
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't think you can get. You would never. I mean, we talked about it at the time, didn't we? No, but I'm just. And it's worth saying that you could never. There's games that exist that simply cannot exist now, and that's one of them.
No, exactly.
Games based on physical deformities and stuff. It's completely mad that they even made it, but just mad. But there's ways you could incorporate, other stuff. I don't know what that would be, but not Hunchbacks.
Yeah, probably not. Finally, not so much a question, just a comment from Andy Marsh. Zapped to the Past podcast has given me a new appreciation for the word released and the word egg.
Why released?
I don't know. Obviously released. I don't know. Released. Do we say released?
Do we say released? It's been released. Maybe we do. It's been released.
This has been released on. I don't know. The word egg, obviously. I mean, egg is. We work at the Sideways Egg. We work at the Sideways
Egg. That's the pub. I mean, look, I'm not alone in my affinity for the word and the whole idea of an egg. Salvador Dali built castles where he covered the walls in eggs. Nobody questions Salvador Dali's egginess. So
that's true.
And yes, but I eat 3 eggs a day. That probably is something to do with it. I do. I eat 3 eggs every morning. I have 3 poached eggs on my sourdough, and I recommend it. It's very good.
Do you? So,
I do, every day.
Oh, wow. I've learned something new about you.
Yes.
That would explain a lot. That's a lot of egg.
It's not a lot of eggs. It's a lot of good stuff. A lot of protein. Helps me when I'm doing all my heavy lifting in the gym.
All right. But the word released, I don't know. Maybe we say the word released a lot.
Depends what we're releasing, I suppose. If it was in our teenage years, it'd be you releasing gas into my bedroom and poisoning me with it.
Well, yeah. I was young. And I had a very bad diet.
You was a gassy teenager. Very gassy.
Yeah, I was. That's how I stayed so thin. I was just full of wind, no solid.
What's funny is that, I mean, gassy is one thing, and obviously all teenagers have that. But you fueled your gas with Coca-Cola. I mean, that's and yet you never gained a pound. It's amazing to me to this day. It amazes me. You were a skinny guy, and back then, I mean, you were a beanpole. But
I was.
But I wasn't. I know. I ate the same as you, and I looked like Incredible Hulk by the end of that, but not in a good way. All of the body shape, none of the muscle. It's the incredible bulk.
I was just tall and thin and whippet.
Well, you know what? We could, because we can. I mean, we look back and we laugh. I had a mustache, so I can say nothing. I had a bad mustache and long, grizzly hair. You had a mullet.
I did have a mullet.
No,
I was proud of that mullet.
A revelatory moment had to happen at some point. Absolutely. For us both.
I remember when I was, how old would I have been? 13, 14, going into the hairdressers and trying to describe Jazz Rignall's haircut and saying that's what I wanted. But I didn't have the magazine with me, which would have been the better thing to do. But then again, it would have been one of those drawings, so it would have been. I could have been all wrong.
What you came out with was freeform Jazz Rignall, as opposed to.
Nice. It wasn't. It really wasn't. It's basically just shaved up past my ears. It was literally like Monty Burns. It was Monty Burns had a word. It really was.
Oh, don't.
It really was.
I had long hair. I say I had long hair. I didn't have long hair. My hair just went backwards. So it started off at the top of my head on a fringe basis like everyone else's, and it just went further back to the point when I just had a ponytail by proxy. Still a mystery as to why and how that happened and what the purpose of it all was. But there you go. We were in a rock band, and I suppose that was my thinking. Hence the leather coat. I'm still ashamed of myself wearing that Halloween T-shirt. I'm never going to live that down. I walked into a rock pub in Grimsby wearing a T-shirt with eggs over people's eyes. But luckily, because I was a bulky guy, no one's going to ever question it because I look like the kind of person that would throw you through the wall.
Yes, you did. That's why I hung around with you. Just protection, really. Polish bouncer.
Oh dear.
There we go.
There it is. It is.
So that's it. That's been our first Ask the Podcast. There's been some cracking questions there. Hopefully you've enjoyed that. And we've given you some a bit more in depth on us and you know a bit more. That's that. So we'll do another one if you ask us more questions.
Yes.
So you know where to go if you put them in the ask. We're just taking. I know there's lots of chat going on in other parts of the Discord, and that's cool. But just for these to kind of keep it separated, it's just in that channel. So it's, if you've got any questions, put them in. When we get around to doing another one of these, we will give you the same amount of nonsense as we've just done for the last hour or so.
And of course, as always, huge thanks to all of our patrons who have taken the time out of their lives to ask those questions and join in the Discord server and all the fun and games and are really getting into the groove as well. It's really ace. Love it in there.
It is. We do. We really enjoy it. So thank you very much for that. And on that note, we will finish here. So as ever, I've been Adrian Mills.
I have been Graham. Ghost of Tsushima. Hey!
And I have been troubled by his sumo pants. And you've been listening to Zapped to the Sumo Pants. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Zapped to the Past podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of Commodore 64 games, as well as the music, films and TV from around the 1980s, driven, of course, by the issue of Zap 64 magazine published at that time. We will return with a whole new batch of games and stuff to talk about next week. Until then, if you want to listen to or download previous episodes of Zapped to the Past, and why wouldn't you, they can all be found on our website at zappedtothepast.com, as well as being available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, Audible, Player FM, and, well, pretty much anywhere where we can upload them. By the way, we do always love to hear from our amazing listeners, so if you'd like to contact us about anything in the podcast or beyond, you can do so by emailing us at zappedtothepast@gmail.com. We're also active on Twitter under @ZapTother, as well as Facebook, Instagram, and most social media platforms. Just search for Zapped to the Past and you'll find us. Oh, and if you like the podcast and what we're doing, please do like, share, review, rate us. It really helps. Something, apparently. The Zapped to the Past podcast is written and produced by Adrian Mills and Graham Raddings and recorded at Flaky Bits 2.0 Studio. All opinions expressed are those of the writers, and while we indeed love Zap 64 magazine, the Zapped to the Past podcast is not affiliated with it in any way. Stay safe, see you next time, and remember, we play these games so you don't have to.